My name is Louise T. Fluellen. I am 31 years old, and for over a year, I had been paying for everything. Rent, groceries, utilities, dinners out. Every single dollar flowed from my account into our shared life. I never complained. I never asked for gratitude. I just did it quietly, because I believed that was what love looked like. That Tuesday night, I came home after 10 hours at the office. A system outage had eaten my entire afternoon, and my brain felt heavy with caffeine and fatigue. Ethan was exactly where I expected him to be, stretched out on the couch, scrolling through his phone. A glass of red wine sat on the coffee table in front of him. I recognized the bottle immediately. I had bought it. I sat down beside him and let the silence settle for a moment. I was too tired to filter myself. Sometimes I feel like we're really building something, I said. Like we're partners, a team. He glanced at me and laughed. Not a warm laugh. Not even a cruel one. It was worse than that. It was amused, dismissive, like I had said something unintentionally funny. Partner? He repeated, eyes already drifting back to his phone. Louise, you're not my partner. You're my sponsor. The word hung in the air longer than it should have. He didn't look up again. He didn't check my reaction. He said it the way someone states a fact they've known for a long time. I sat there completely still, letting it land exactly where it needed to land, and it did. I smiled. Not the kind of smile that asks for reassurance. Not the kind that tries to soften a moment. A clear smile, calm, controlled. Sponsorship canceled, I said. He didn't even react. In his mind, I was still the same woman I had always been. The one who paid. The one who absorbed. The one who would move past it quietly. He didn't understand that something had shifted, not emotionally, but structurally. By Friday, he would. Ethan and I had been together for 14 months when he said that word. Sponsor. We met through a mutual friend at a housewarming party the spring before. He was charming in an effortless way, confident without being loud, the kind of man who knew how to make people feel like they were being let in on something special. I was recently promoted, settled into my career, my life running smoothly. He told me he admired how grounded I was. I believed him. He didn't move in all at once. There was no conversation about it, no decision made out loud. His overnight bag became a drawer became half the closet, groceries doubled. His name started appearing on my mental checklist without ever being written down. It happened the way water fills a glass, slowly, quietly, until one day you realize it's full. The financial arrangement followed the same pattern. The lease was in my name, so I paid the rent. I already handled utilities, so I kept handling them. I did the grocery shopping, so the bill stayed on my card. Ethan worked part-time at a local shop, 20 hours a week, just enough to cover his personal expenses. Early on, he told me he was saving to launch something of his own, an online brand, a creative venture. He talked about it with enough confidence that I didn't question the lack of progress. By month 6, nothing had materialized. No website, no inventory, just talk. I didn't push. I told myself people move at different speeds. Love requires patience. By month 10, I started noticing patterns I couldn't unsee. The way he ordered the most expensive item on every menu without looking at the price. The way he talked about trips like they were inevitable, not optional. The way he never once offered to split a bill. Not because he was rude, because he genuinely didn't think it was his responsibility. I kept paying. I kept smiling. I kept telling myself this was temporary. There was a dinner around month 4 that came back to me later with uncomfortable clarity. We were at a restaurant he loved, dim lighting, linen napkins, a place that made spending feel invisible. The bill came to $140. I handed over my card without hesitation. Ethan leaned back and smiled. "This is why you're my favorite person," he said. At the time, I took it as affection. Later, I understood the word favorite wasn't about closeness. It was about comparison. In month 7, his mother called while we were together and spent 40 minutes praising how lucky Ethan was to have a woman who took care of everything. Ethan didn't correct her. He just smiled and said, "I know." After the call, I asked if we should start splitting household costs just to keep things balanced. He looked genuinely surprised. "Why?" he asked. "You make good money. You can handle it." I dropped it. I shouldn't have. By month 11, something quiet shifted inside me. Not anger. Awareness. One night, while Ethan was in the shower, I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank statements. Rent, groceries, utilities, dining out, month after month, all on my card. When I added it up, the number stopped me cold. Over 14 months, I had paid more than $40,000 to support a life we both lived. Ethan's contribution was zero. I closed the laptop and sat there in the quiet while the shower ran. I didn't feel betrayed. I felt clear. Like I had finally named something that had been sitting in front of me the entire time. He knew exactly what he was doing. I still didn't say anything. Not yet. I needed to be sure. And that Tuesday night, when he laughed and called me his sponsor, he gave me confirmation I didn't even know I was waiting for. Here is something Ethan did not know about me. In my job, when something breaks, you do not panic. You do not raise your voice. You do not act on emotion. You observe. You trace the failure. You isolate the cause. Then you fix it with precision. I had been doing that for years, and without even planning to, I applied the same discipline to my personal life. That night, after he fell asleep, I did not cry. I did not pace. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and mapped everything out. Every account, every autopay, every subscription, every bill tied to my name or my card. Rent, utilities, internet, the shared credit card, the grocery app, streaming services, gym membership he had added without telling me. I documented everything, time-stamped it, and saved it in a folder labeled clearly. Not out of spite, out of clarity. By Thursday morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I moved fast, but not recklessly. Speed without chaos. First, I logged into the shared credit card account and changed the default payment method. Auto payments would no longer pull from my personal checking. The card would still work, but any new charges would sit unpaid until someone addressed them manually. Then I contacted the landlord. The lease was in my name alone. I sent a professional email explaining that starting with the next billing cycle, rent would be split into 2 equal payments, one from me, one from Ethan. I included his email so there would be no confusion. I did the same with utilities, electric, gas, internet. Where secondary payment contacts were allowed, I added him. Where they were not, I sent him payment requests with exact amounts, due dates, and provider names. Everything documented, everything visible. That evening, I sat him down at the kitchen table. I meant what I said, I told him. Sponsorship canceled. Starting now. We split everything down the middle. He stared at me like I had spoken a foreign language. What are you talking about? He said. Every shared expense, I said. Rent, utilities, groceries, I pay my half. You pay yours. His face moved through confusion, then disbelief, then something close to fear. That's ridiculous, he said. I barely make anything. I know, I said, which is why I've been covering everything for 14 months. He tried to laugh it off. He called me dramatic. He said this wasn't like me. I didn't argue. I slid a printed sheet across the table. A clean breakdown of every shared expense, split exactly in half with due dates. Rent, utilities, groceries, clear, undeniable. This isn't funny, he said. It was never meant to be, I replied. He left the table without another word. I stayed where I was, drinking water, listening to the apartment settle into silence. For the first time in over a year, it felt like the space belonged to me again. By the time I went to bed, the requests had already been delivered. The landlord had confirmed receipt. The utility companies had logged the changes. Everything was in motion. There was no way to undo it quietly. And that was when I knew he was finally going to understand what that word really cost. I had one more move planned, and this one wasn't about money. It was about visibility. On Thursday afternoon, I texted a man I had met 2 weeks earlier through a friend. His name was Daniel. He worked in structural engineering. We'd exchanged numbers casually after a group dinner. Nothing flirty, nothing loaded. Just an easy conversation that stayed with me, longer than I expected. I texted him at 3:15. Are you free for dinner tomorrow night? There's a place called Bellinis. Quiet, good food. He replied 20 minutes later. Sounds great. What time? I said 7:30. Bellinis mattered for one specific reason. It was Ethan's favorite restaurant. The place he always chose when he wanted to feel taken care of. The place where price never seemed to exist because it never came out of his pocket. He'd mentioned wanting to go back there just days before calling me his sponsor. Ethan and I still shared a credit card. He had asked to be added as an authorized user 8 months into the relationship, and I had agreed without hesitation. The card showed every transaction to both users, every charge, every merchant, fully visible. Friday evening came quietly. I picked Daniel up at 7:15. We were seated near the back of Bellinis, warm lighting, low music, the kind of place where conversations don't have to compete with the room. Daniel was easy to talk to. He asked questions and waited for the answers. He talked about a bridge project that had been consuming his team for weeks. I told him about a migration rollout at work. The conversation moved without effort. We ordered dinner, steak for me, salmon for him, 1 bottle of wine, nothing excessive. The bill came to $118. I put it on the shared card. I want to be clear. I didn't do this to hurt Ethan. I did it because he had defined the terms. He had called me a sponsor. I had canceled the sponsorship. A shared card records, shared transactions. That was all this was. At 9:47, while we were finishing dessert, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "What is this charge at Bellinis?" I saw it. I turned my phone face down on the table. I didn't respond. Saturday morning arrived with noise. By the time I walked back into the apartment at 8:30, Ethan was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table, phone in his hand. His expression sat somewhere between angry and panicked. "Who were you with last night?" he demanded. "A friend," I said. "We had dinner." "At Bellinis," he said. "Our restaurant." "It's a restaurant," I said. "It doesn't belong to us." He stood up quickly. "You did this on purpose. You took someone else there to hurt me." I set my keys on the counter. I poured a glass of water. I took a slow sip before answering. "I took someone to dinner at a public place," I said. "That's not an attack." "While we're still together," he said. I looked at him directly. For the first time in 14 months, I didn't soften my expression to make him comfortable. "Are we?" I asked. The question landed harder than anything else I could have said. He shifted immediately. "You can't just cut off payments like this. I have bills due. The landlord emailed me. The electric company called." "Yes," I said, "because those bills exist, and now they're yours too." He tried guilt. He tried frustration. He told me I was being cold, that this wasn't like me. None of it moved me. I had spent over $40,000 supporting a life he had openly admitted was funded by me. The funding had stopped. By Sunday night, the apartment felt different. Quieter, not empty, clear. And I knew the consequences were only just beginning. The first unpaid notice arrived faster than Ethan expected. 3 days after that Saturday morning conversation, the electric company sent an automated warning email. The tone was polite but firm. Payment past due. Service interruption possible. I didn't forward it. I didn't comment. It went to both of us, exactly as it should have. The internet followed the next day, then the shared credit card statement posted at the end of the week, and that one told the full story without emotion or interpretation. 14 months of charges laid out in black and white. Rent, groceries, restaurants, online orders. A gym membership he had added without asking. A subscription box I had never even seen delivered. When the total appeared at the bottom, it was higher than even I had estimated. Over $43,000, almost all tied to my name. Ethan saw it. I know he did, because that night he came home quiet. No accusations, no jokes. Just a man sitting on the edge of the couch, staring at a number that couldn't be argued with. For the first time since I'd known him, he didn't try to spin it. He didn't minimize it. He didn't explain it away. He asked one question. "What am I supposed to do?" I answered calmly. "Figure it out, the same way I did." He didn't like that. He accused me of abandoning him. He said partners don't pull the rug out from under each other. I reminded him of his own words. Sponsor, not partner. The arrangement had been named by him. All I did was end it. By the second week, he stopped sleeping at the apartment. He stayed at his mother's place, claiming he needed space. The truth was simpler. Without my payments, the apartment was just a list of obligations he couldn't meet. Rent reminders, utility warnings, payment requests he kept ignoring, because ignoring them had always worked before. His friends started reaching out, not to apologize, to negotiate. One asked if I could just help him out until he gets back on his feet. Another suggested I was being too harsh and should consider the stress I was putting him under. I didn't respond. I didn't owe anyone an explanation for enforcing boundaries I had already explained clearly. A woman named Olivia, one of his friends, messaged me privately a few days later. She said she felt uncomfortable staying silent anymore. She sent me a screenshot of a group chat from months earlier. Ethan had written, "Louise pays for everything. I don't even think about bills." The message had laughing reactions underneath it. I saved the screenshot. I didn't send it to him. I didn't need to. He already knew. By the end of the third week, the landlord called me directly. He said Ethan had asked about staying on the lease alone, but didn't qualify on income. He asked if I would consider remaining as a guarantor. I said no. Not angrily, not defensively, just no. That night, the apartment was silent. No phone scrolling, no wine glasses, no background noise. Just the sound of something collapsing under the weight of its own truth. And for the first time since this started, I felt completely at peace. The collapse didn't come all at once. It came in pieces. Quiet, inconvenient pieces that couldn't be argued with or laughed away. By the 4th week, Ethan stopped asking for help and started asking for time. Time to fix things. Time to talk. Time to go back to how it was before he said what he said. I didn't give him any of it. I started preparing to leave. Not dramatically, not overnight. I looked at listings during lunch breaks. I toured apartments on my way home from work. Something smaller, something quieter, something that didn't feel like a stage set for someone else's comfort. I found a 1-bedroom across town, nothing flashy, but clean and calm and mine. The rent was reasonable. Every bill would be in my name. Every dollar would go exactly where I chose. When I told Ethan I was moving out, he didn't react the way I expected. There was no shouting, no pleading, just a stunned silence, like he'd finally realized this wasn't a phase. This wasn't a tactic. This was the end of an arrangement he had depended on without ever respecting. He tried one last angle. He apologized. Not the rushed kind, not the defensive kind. He said he hadn't realized how much pressure he'd put on me. He said he'd taken things for granted. He said he understood now. I believe that he believed it. But understanding after the damage doesn't undo the damage, it just explains it. I moved out on a Saturday morning. 2 trips in my car. Clothes, books, my desk chair, the things that had always been mine, even when the space didn't feel like it was. I didn't leave a note. I didn't leave instructions. I left the keys on the counter and walked out without looking back. The first night in my new apartment was quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar. No background noise, no tension humming under the surface. I ordered takeout, sat on the floor, and ate slowly. I slept better than I had in over a year. Ethan texted once more after that. From an unknown number. He said he was sorry. He said he wished he could take it back. He said he finally understood what partnership actually meant. I read it. I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty, out of completion. Life didn't become perfect overnight, but it became honest. My finances stabilized immediately. My energy came back. I stopped bracing myself before conversations. I stopped explaining my worth to people who benefited from not seeing it. Daniel and I kept seeing each other, slowly, carefully, no rushing, no assumptions. He asked questions. He listened. He paid his share without comment. The simplicity of that felt revolutionary. One evening, weeks later, I found myself back at Bellinis, alone this time. I sat by the window, ordered dinner, and paid the bill myself. No shared card, no invisible expectations, just a clean transaction and a quiet sense of control. I thought about that Tuesday night, about how casually Ethan had said the word sponsor, how little weight he'd given it. He hadn't meant to be cruel. He'd meant to be honest, and in doing so, he had given me the clarity I didn't know I needed. Some people wait years for a moment like that, a single sentence that explains everything. I stopped funding someone else's comfort at the expense of my own. I stopped mistaking patience for partnership. I stopped shrinking to keep something together that was never balanced to begin with. I didn't win. I didn't get revenge. I didn't walk away triumphant. I walked away free.